everybody. We're going to get started. Welcome to the Matheson History Museum. I'm Peggy MacDonald. I'm here to sport my new Real Rosewood Foundation shirt. Mrs. Jenkins invited me to join the board, so now that I have the shirt on, I feel like I'm on the board. This is a very exciting program for us to have here at the Matheson. Mrs. Jenkins is the real deal. She is authentic. In fact, she's so authentic, she's going off book tonight. We have a very short PowerPoint presentation, and primarily you will be hearing all about Mrs. Jenkins' family from the heart. I want to put a plug in for some other upcoming programs. On Saturday at 4 p.m., we have a Florida Humanities Council talk. And this is Lou Vickers, and she's written several books on Florida history. She wrote a history of Paradise Park, and she spoke here 3 years ago about that. And Paradise Park was a segregated part of Silver Springs that was bulldozed at the time of desegregation rather than integrate. And her book she'll be talking about on Saturday is about Cypress Gardens and the making of modern Florida. We also have 2 weeks after that on Saturday at 4 p.m. We're going to have Craig Pittman talk about his new book, Oh, Florida. Craig Pittman is a St. Pete Times journalist, and if you know about Florida Man, Florida Woman, he's really written the definitive book on that, on strange things that happen in Florida. So we do have a newsletter in the corner. Feel free to pick one up, or you can look at our Facebook. And on our Facebook, we're going to put some pictures from this event, and we're going to put the video by Samuel Proctor Oral History Program as soon as it's live. And we also request that there be no amateur videos. You're going to have the best. The Samuel Proctor Oral History Program videos have amazing sound. It's almost better than being here live. And the video is just perfect. So please, no amateur videos as well. You'll see the whole thing. It'll be up soon on the website on YouTube. So with no further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing Anita Jenkins McCarter, Mrs. Jenkins' daughter. And I'd like to point out that she worked for the Alachua County Library District for over 38 years before retiring in 2016. And is a member and historian for the Alachua County Charmettes. Loves reading, genealogy, and helping people. That's the kind of person we like to have around here at the Matheson. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come hear Lizzie Robinson Jenkins. It's a pleasure to introduce her this evening. Lizzie Robinson Jenkins is the executive director of the Rosewood Foundation, Incorporated. She grew up on a farm in Archer, Florida, where there was a lot of animals, and she also said that where there were character building with the animals, and that was important to her. She also attended public schools, the Archer Negro Public Schools. She also attended Lincoln High School, Nova University, Florida Memorial University. She taught public schools for 33 years for Alachua County. She's a retired teacher and skilled self-experienced historian. Liz also is a Rosewood descendant. But the most important thing is Liz was also awarded the Ida B. Wells Award for Awareness, Education, and Advocacy. She lives in Archer. She attends St. Joseph Missionary Baptist Church and is married to John Jenkins, my father, and together they have 6 children. She wants to be remembered as a giving person, a friend, a fact finder, and to befriend others. I present to some and introduce to others Lizzie Robinson Jenkins.
Good afternoon. I am going to sidestep for a minute, and I want you all to meet the artist, our Rosewood resident artist. And he is going to tell you a few things about himself, and then he's going to introduce the board of directors chair. And then I will come back to you and share a little information with you about Rosewood. Pedro Germain.
It's okay. So after that commotion, right? Okay. So good evening. I will start by giving you a brief history of how I got to this point. My mission as an artist has always been changing the perception of what is possible through the arts. Passion for artistic excellence became my motto. My primary goal has always been to make a difference. My journey has always been about community and how I can use my talents to inspire others, and maybe even bring a sense of hope that wasn't there before. I am inspired by our lives, our failures, and our victories, because that is what makes us human. Therefore, it is only befitting that Lizzie Jenkins and I would cross paths in February of 2016. However, little did I know she would make me the resident artist of the Real Rosewood Foundation. So I have done quite a few things within this 8-year span, but nothing quite like Rosewood. Having the opportunity to represent such a significant part of American history allowed me to take something so profound and interpret the event in such a way as to create this piece that sits here with us today. So that brings me to the painting Hope Prevails. Hope Prevails was produced out of a place of compassion and regret, as there is always a part of me, and better yet all of us, that wants to do more. The painting takes the history of the African American plight within the U.S. as to impact the audience on a broader scale. But there was quite a bit of deliberation over the landscape as I studied many photos of Rosewood, and Lizzie helped with that by providing me with images of the town and the layout, structures, so she played a very big hand in the production of this painting. The landscape I chose is my representation of the Florida wilderness. From the moonlit moss to the sweeping oak branches to the deep blue night sky, everything was done to provide the viewer with a dramatic scene. Of course, I want to do Rosewood justice, and I want to try and represent those events accurately, but as an artist, we have to take some creative liberties. Remember, this happened in the middle of the winter season, so it was very cold, hence my use of cooler colors. The grand scale of everything around the figures represents their soul journey into this unknown world, hiding and just trying to survive their journey to a safe haven. The silhouettes were used as a representation of anybody because I wanted the viewer to place him or herself in the situation. And notice that they are not following any particular path, because when you're caught up in such an event, well, your main is just to flee and be safe and protect your loved ones. The mother in this painting is actually pulling her daughter from behind the palmetto bush as a cue that the scene is clear to escape the ambush on what was once their home and their community. I wanted to convey emotion with dramatic elements, but at the same time, provide something of beauty. The power of art is that it allows us to bring our deepest emotions and our thoughts to life. It allows us to have an outlet, which in turn provides the viewer with something profound and thought-provoking. It unifies us as we learn we are more alike than we are different. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be validated. It is at the core of every human need. And in addition, with this painting, Hope Prevails, we can see that beauty can derive from even the darkest of places. Thank you. And with that, I introduce you to our board director, Bea Coker.
Good evening, everyone. So wonderful to see such diverse faces. This is awesome, so awesome. My name is Bea Coker. I am the chairwoman of the Real Rosewood Foundation, Inc., and I'm absolutely excited. I met Pedro probably 4 or 5 years ago. Pedro is the Norman Rockwell of Columbia County, and so art does have, I think performing arts in general has this ability to take sensitive topics and chew them up and spit them out to an audience in such a way that it's not offensive. It allows us to analyze it from different perspectives, and my entire time acquainted with Pedro has allowed us to do just that. We talk about some of the most difficult topics in Columbia County, Lake City, in a place where they still celebrate wars through civil rights, Civil War, and it's possible through art, through performing art. So we're really, really excited. Pedro introduced me to Lizzie Jenkins 2 years ago. And in our little town of Lake City, where we have just about 17,000 people, she became our keynote speaker for an annual celebration of African culture in the town. And so we created an essay contest for the students, and part of their reward for winning the contest was to have lunch and to be with Lizzie Jenkins. And so we were trying to figure out what in the world could we do to show Ms. Jenkins that we appreciate her and to welcome her. And so we got all of our elected officials and we got a limo, and we said the city of Lake City, which is not Rosewood, we're going to welcome her with open arms to our community. That was our gift to Ms. Jenkins. And she arrived, and it was an absolutely beautiful time with her. But then I got a little scared about these students who had won this contest, and it was a pretty diverse school. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world would they broach this subject of Rosewood that would be able to maintain the innocence of these middle school students. And so I sat down to lunch with Lizzie and these students, and their parents had allowed each of them to watch the movie, and I was scared for nothing, and they had all these questions about the characters, and I'm sitting there saying, how do you know all of this stuff? And they were absolutely just glad to have a conversation with a real person about real parts of history, because as adults, we get so protective of their innocence. And they reminded me that without giving them truth, then their innocence is protected with lies and deceit, and that's not what our history is. So I proudly represent Rosewood in this capacity because I love being an American, and I'm not ashamed of my history. I'm not ashamed of the history that began in Africa with kings and queens. I'm not ashamed that I've come through ancestry of slavery. I'm not ashamed to say that though I don't have people who were descendants of Rosewood, that is our history. Our history is proof that we are a people who makes mistakes because we're not perfect. Our history is proof that we show compassion for people whose plight is different from ours. Our history and your presence is proof that we are a loving people, and when we were created by whomever we deemed to be the creator, he did so, and he gave each of us something that connects us to each other, and I believe that to be love. So I am to say to you that Lizzie is more than delighted to take photos. She loves taking photos. She's extremely photogenic. But she'd like to take them at the end, if you don't mind, and she'll take them with you. But when you hold the cameras out and the flashes and all that stuff, it can be distracting. And so to be respectful of our neighbors seated, if you'd wait to the end to take pictures with her, she'd love to. I am also to tell you that our vision and legacy, this is the very largest board I have ever chaired. Lizzie has friends like you wouldn't believe. And though I have told her that typically you do not exceed a dozen people on a board, the meeting will be 3-4 hours. She has convinced me that these are very, very efficient people. And I need them to be efficient because I live in Lake City. So Pedro and I have to travel an hour and a half anyhow to get here, and then you got 30 people on this board, and so I need work done. I am extremely excited because there are some of the most diverse people in North Central Florida seated on the board. So I cannot wait for 2019 and for the citizens to see, because I believe this is also going to be a teaching moment. We are so wrapped up on the drama of life that we forget that in all things there's a teaching moment. And I believe the teaching moment of this tragedy is to turn it into something that make the lives of those residents worthwhile. And so for the Real Rosewood Foundation, that is to create opportunities for young people to be embraced with diversity. So our very first venture is Adopt a School. So we're going to adopt the school that Lizzie's aunt taught at, and it is a diverse school, and so we have this diverse board, and we're going to make sure that we do our part to expose those children to diversity. I cannot go back and erase the history of Rosewood, but I can instill people, young people, with enough loving adults and opportunities that you couldn't hate me even if I made you eat broccoli. So that is the plan. We're going to put adults of diverse backgrounds in this school, and hopefully it'll catch on, and people will do it. And these children will grow up, and they couldn't hate anybody because everybody has loved you your entire life. That's our first project. Our second project is to take all of these opportunities. Lizzie's been doing this for 25, 30 years. To take all of these opportunities to get people together, and let's just not show them love, because we need you to be educated. You educate these children who we have shown love, and guess what? They're going to grow up and be our elected officials. They're going to cut our taxes. They're going to have very nice senior citizen homes for us. And so I want to do right by these children. I want us to send them to school. Lizzie has given over the last 25 years, she's given about $20,000, $30,000 in scholarships. We could do better than that because I have an expense. And I don't want you to put me in a little nursing home that doesn't have a luxury boutique downstairs that I can go and get some things. So we're going to do right by these children. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to use all of these events throughout the year to create scholarships, and we're going to have them. We're going to identify them in elementary school. We're going to have them pledge to us that they're going to live this life embracing diversity and come share with us every year at our annual gala some interesting things about themselves. And we're going to watch them grow, and we're going to watch them go off to college, and hopefully they'll come back and they'll be our legislators, and they will make very good decisions for us. So I'm excited. The last of our projects is, of course, a multicultural center/museum, because there's all of these Rosewood items, and we need a place to house them, and we need a different experience. I really, really am overjoyed by Gainesville and all of the opportunities to come, which I love Bo Diddley. I love how Bo Diddley allows your entire community to come. Homeless, whomever, it doesn't matter. You guys are the most welcoming community that I have been in Florida, and it is awesome. So we need that same type of situation, but tailored around young people, where they feel free to come and be in that same diverse environment. I do believe that it is our extreme responsibility that we have to teach them by showing them this is how you embrace diversity, and it's possible. So that's the vision of the Real Rosewood Foundation. I am super duper excited. I am hoping that this 30-member board is going to run as efficiently as I have been promised. If not, I'll be looking for another board to join. So we have a lot of souvenirs on the table. There's books that Lizzie has written. There's Rosewood fancy collared shirts and T-shirts, and so I hope that you guys will take a look at them and purchase some items. I am so excited about tonight, and so I am excited to introduce you to a woman that I have absolutely nothing but respect for. I was reading some of the notes of the children in the book, and you are an awesome person. You are an absolutely awesome person. I appreciate you. I know that the audience here represents people who appreciate you as well, and I can't wait to hear you tonight.
Thank you. And B, we have 39 board members. Football team. And the runners. I would like for all of the board members to stand. Let's see who you are. And there are about 29 more. Anyway, I am delightful to be here tonight to speak to you. I'm disappointed because for the last 3 weeks, I have put together a PowerPoint presentation to show you all of my pictures, most of them, that I have collected over the last 25 years, and guess what? Too many pictures. Absolutely. The PowerPoint was just huge, too big. So I'm going to speak to you from what I know about Rosewood. As you already know, my aunt, Mahulda Gussie Brown Carrier from Archer, was a school teacher. My mother was her sister, my boss, and my mom. She was something else. When the Rosewood movie came out, and I do thank John Singleton for the movie. However, he added a little more. But when I took my mom to see the movie in 1997, she was 95. And when Rosewood happened in 1923, she was single, still at home at age 21. So I said to my mom, I said, Mom, tell me what you liked about the movie. Because we knew that it had been sensationalized, okay? She said, well, baby, I tell you 2 things that people will learn and remember. That Rosewood did happen, and that people lie on black men. Those are the 2 things that you will remember. And she said, for every mistake or everything they did not tell, you are going to research it and you are going to tell it. And boy, that is where my assignment started. I was upset about the movie because they got our information telling me, oh yes, you are going to be in the play and you can play the part of your aunt. They got our information, they used it. Not only did they not allow me to play the part, they did not allow me and my mom to the movie set. There was a minister, friends to my mother, said, and I can call his name now, he's deceased. And the doctor's not going to be there tomorrow, so I will call management and I'll get y'all down there. She did, and we were on the set. However, we still were not able to use any of our information. And I had all of that on my tapes, on my PowerPoint. We're going to have to do that PowerPoint so that you all can see the real pictures. But anyway, from that, and because I was upset, my mom said, baby, don't worry. Everything happens for a reason. I got enough information for you. You can do your own movie. And she did. With the information, all of the information she didn't have, she made me research it. You wouldn't believe it. So I started my day at the Levy County Courthouse, 1993, March 14. Okay? On that, and I had been going before that particular day. I may have started early March 1993. And the word got out that there was a little black girl, a little colored girl coming down doing research and asking questions about Rosewood. So I continued to go. And Mom wanted me to go every day. I said, Mom, I got to work. Every afternoon after work, I headed to Brunson. As I said, they knew I was coming, so on March 14, 1993, I had that document. I was sitting at the table doing my research and that kind of thing, and a group of men, I don't have to tell you what color, encircled my table. My heart dropped. I was in the basement doing my research. My heart dropped to my feet, and I reflected quickly on what had happened to my aunt. I never looked up, but I saw them encircling my table, and they all were wearing camouflage jeans or whatever. So I gave myself a little time to collect myself after they left, and I said, it's time for me to get out of here. And I had already made copies of some information, so I said to myself, I need to pay for this. I stopped by the cashier to pay for this, and she asked me, and what's your name? What's my name? I said, Pincholetta. And your last name? I said, that's my last name. My first name is Elizabeth Pincholetta. And she said, spell that for me, and I did. And then she said, will you spell that again? You know I spelled it differently. But I couldn't get home because I was so afraid. I drove home as fast as I could, and I shared it with my mom, hoping she'll say, okay, baby, that's okay. You don't have to go back. She said, just take a few days. You'll be all right, and then you can go back. So I relaxed for a few days, and of course, I went back. And that happened and kept happening and kept happening. So as I was working, I met a young lady who worked in the courthouse, and she befriended me. Until this day, we are friends. So today, Peggy brought me something and said, ooh, look what somebody sent you. And this is what she sent me. Isn't it beautiful? Thank you. I'm going to call her tonight. Are you in the house, Tony? Okay, Tony lives in Chiefland. Guess what happened to Tony? As a result of befriending me and telling me where to find all of the information that I needed, she was fired. She was actually real life fired. And we are still good friends today. I think I said that. Okay, I can't wait to get home to call her to tell her how it went. And it says on here, go get them, Liz. I think that's what it said. If not, that sounds pretty good to me. So I'm here to go get them. But anyway, the days just continued with my research. I was determined, and my mom was determined that I tell the truth. Okay? She encouraged me, don't attack anybody, because these people didn't create Rosewood, and you didn't create Rosewood. It's history. And you tell it and tell the truth, or don't tell it at all. And everything that I did not know, I researched it to find it out. One thing today, one question today I cannot answer. If somebody asked me, how many people were in Rosewood when Rosewood happened? I don't know. Turn your phone off, John Jenkins. That was my phone. Sorry about that. But he's in control. But anyway, Rosewood, I don't know where I was. I should have not said anything. What was the last thing I said? How many people were in Rosewood? That I don't know, but I can come close to it because I have the school records from the school, Levy County, in 1923. Now, researching was not easy because there were so many roadblocks. I went to the school board 1 time, 2 times, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Each time, we don't have those records. I said, yes, you do. You have those records. And about on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time, they said, well, she is not going to stop So we need to let her see these records. I said, you have them on Fisk? Is it Fisk Dish or something like that? I don't remember. Then they did show them to me. I know the students that were in school there and the teachers and the parents. Not only did I find out how many blacks students were there, I also have the records of the white students and the white teachers. I know that there were 3 white teachers in Rosewood, and there were 3 black teachers in Rosewood. The thing that really surprised me, the first black teacher in Rosewood was hired in 1870. And the first white teacher in Rosewood was hired in I don't remember all of these dates, but it was early 1900. So why did they put black education first? Okay, and I have the family name and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, that is what I have, and I am getting thirsty. Okay, so I kept going, and I continued to go, and I continued to explore. And I continued to be threatened. Okay, and I remember in 2003, I wrote a book, and I wanted the approval of the city commissioner so that they could come to my book signing. So I went to a city commissioner meeting one morning, and as I walked in the door, a young man who was a city commissioner from Cedar Key approached me, tall guy, okay? And his friends came with him and surrounded me. And he said to me, we are tired of hearing about Rosewood. We don't want to hear about Rosewood, and we're not going to support your book signing. I'm a 4th generation Levy County, and I said to him, and I'm 5 generations. And I can prove it. We went back and forth. Oh, because he had support of the other white men, or the other men, he thought he could say anything to me that he wanted to. He said it, but it was word for word. Went home and told my mom that. Oh, you'll be okay in 2 or 3 days, so you can go back. But I said, now, my book is not complete. I'm going to get even with him. You know our conversation we had? Word for word, I put it in my book. My name, Lizzie, this is what I said. His name, Keith, this is what he said. Now, don't try to look up Keith in Cedar Key, because he knew I put it in my book. So when the book came out, I had some people to call and say, Liz, did you really do that? I said, I really did, because he really hurt my feeling, and I'm not taking, I don't step back for anybody. Because my mom has always said, don't take any wooden nickels. You all know what that means? Okay, because she didn't take any wooden nickels. And when you hear me or see me, my mom's name was Teresa. I am Teresa Jr. And I remember her growing up in the Jim Crow days. And I remember her cutting people's neck with words because they attacked her. They belittled her children. My dad didn't say anything. He didn't have to. My mom took care of business. And that's why I am here today, because my mom took care of business and said, you are going to finish that book. You are going to do that research, because my sister suffered the agony of defeat. She was gang raped by the men because she refused to admit that her husband was involved with the young lady who cried attack. And she said, don't you worry about Fanny Taylor who cried rape. She said, Fanny Taylor was not the only person giving it up. She just got caught. Okay? Don't you ever attack her. And by the way, Fanny Taylor and her husband had 1 son. And I had the opportunity to meet this man before he died. He was in his 90s. The people in Cedar Key called me and said, oh, you can come and see him. I refused to go because I didn't know what to say to him. Plus, he hadn't done anything. So I did not go to meet Fanny Taylor's son. But I'm going to start with the story from day one. Day one, Monday, January 1, 1923. Fanny Taylor's husband, James Taylor, was the foreman at the Comer sawmill. And let me back up and say this, the reason I tell the truth. Because every white person in Levy County, if I don't tell the truth, they know it. They know the truth. Do they tell it? Of course not. And when I would ask them about Rosewood, everyone said the same thing. You know, Fanny Thiele started this, whatever they called it. That's all they would tell me. If I asked detailed questions, never had any answers. And I think I need to back up one more time. Before I started my research, my aunt became a principal in Gulf Hammock. And I found her roll book, and there were some names in that roll book. And one of the names sounded black. And I called this man so that I could get some information before I really started my research. And I said, my name is Lizzie Jenkins, Mr. Bernie, and I'm a Rosewood descendant, and I'm looking for information about Rosewood. He said, well, my name is Bernie, but I ain't black, and I ain't who you looking for, and I don't have any information about Rosewood, but my sister got all the information. Call her. And I called her. Remember I told you I had the records from the school in Rosewood? Eventually, she was one of the students there at that time. So when I called her, she wasn't too pleased. And where did you get my number from? I said, your brother. So I called her 4, 5, 6 times. Everybody made me work. So eventually, she said, okay, I'll see you. So I went to her house in Sumner. She and her husband were delightful. They shared what they knew, every inch of what they knew. So I'm getting back to day one when Fanny Taylor screamed, attack, and her husband was at work. Now, her husband went to work every morning at 4 a.m., first shift, oil the machines at the sawmill. And then at 6 o'clock, he went home, had breakfast, and came back. And that's when the second work crew came on. Now, Fanny Taylor's husband, I understand, was white. I know he was from Gulf Hammock because when he escaped or left, when it was getting too close for James to come home, James Taylor, Fanny's husband, for breakfast, Fanny had told, let's call him Lester. Fanny had told Lester, the perpetrator, the real perpetrator, however she lied on my uncle, Aaron Carrier, that she wanted to call off the relationship, and he didn't agree with her. So a fight ensued, and she was left black and blue all over. And she had to tell her husband when he arrived home for breakfast at 6 a.m. what happened. So the historical lie said, a black man did it. You know she didn't say black man. You know she didn't use the word black, don't you? And she said, that's who did it. James Taylor was furious, her husband, so what he did, he telegraphed the people in Gainesville at the somewhere downtown and told them what had happened. And he said, I need you all help. You got to come to Sumner and help us catch this guy who attacked my wife. Now, this was January 1. On December 31, 1922, here in Gainesville, downtown square, there was a KKK rally. So the people was already in town, okay, that gave them an opportunity to come to Rosewood. But the sensible people went home. The sensible KKK went home. And did not get involved. Because when I finish the outcome, you will know why they went home. But anyway, over a period of a day or two, I understand from the Gainesville Daily Sun, it was at the time, that approximately 400 to 500 people came to Rosewood looking for the man who attacked Fanny Taylor. Okay? They didn't find anybody black. But you know, by them being the KKK and Jim Crow lawless, they pinned it on a black person. And the reason they thought the person was from Rosewood is because when Lester, escaped and left Rosewood, left Sumner, he went straight to Rosewood. Why? He knew Aaron, my uncle. They were Masonic brothers, but non-talking. He just knew Aaron was a Mason. So they helped each other. So when Lester got to Aaron's house, that's the Masonic knock. Aaron jumped out of bed. His wife, they were in bed approximately 5 a.m., ran to the door. Who is it? Who is it? That was a stress knock. He told Aaron something that my aunt could not hear in the bedroom. So Aaron ran back to the room and put on his clothes and left the house, and the guy left with him, Lester. They went next door to Aaron's first cousin's house, Sam Carter. Got Sam Carter up. Sam Carter had a wagon, okay, and he was a blacksmith. They put him in the wagon and took him to Guff Hammock, the back way from Rosewood. Let's say this is Sumner, Rosewood, Guff Hammock. So they went to Guff Hammock, dropped him off. He was safe. He was free. But they had to come back to Rosewood, and as they were coming back, they knew that, you know, news spread. They knew that people were congregating in Sumner. So before they got back to the house, they kind of like went close enough to Sumner to see. And if you don't know it, black folks always have had a back road to travel because they were not allowed to travel on the main highway because they would be attacked. My dad, during 1940, early 40s, worked away from home. 7 miles he walked every day, and he never got on the main highway. He went through the trees to work and back. So when they came back from Guff Hammock, they circled the block close enough to see that something was going on over there. So Aaron went home and said to my aunt, we got to go to Aunt Sarah's house. She was on winter vacation during the holidays. She said, why? He said, because. Because what? Anyway, he was so shaken. She got up and went to Aunt Sarah's house. Aunt Sarah's house was like the safe haven where people congregated. I'm going to stop trying to use that word. To gossip, well, not to gossip, to talk and to find out what is going on. So people later that afternoon started coming to her house, women and children, because they knew something in Sumner was happening. So later that day, when Aaron got settled, in fact, he was so upset when he got to Aunt Sarah's house. Aunt Sarah was Sylvester Carrier's house, and Sylvester didn't play the bingo. He didn't play anything. Bad Leroy Brown. He carried a gun daily. He hated James Taylor, and James Taylor hated him as much, okay? So when they got to the house, Aaron got in bed and covered up in Aunt Sarah's bed because they had left his home. So when the mob had all organized and got settled, and drank moonshine for courage, they came to Rosewood looking for whomever. They didn't know where they were going, but they had gotten some dogs, okay, tracking dogs, and they came to Rosewood. The tracking dogs took them to Aaron's house. They didn't find Aaron. They said, well, we know where he is. He's probably over at Aunt Sarah's house, which was right across the track. Now, when you hear lies like, oh, there was some big 2-story white houses in Rosewood, lies, okay, lies. I I wish I had those pictures. But anyway, the houses were shotgun houses. In Sumner, the whites lived in shotgun houses, beautiful shotgun houses. The black workers that lived in Sumner, shotgun houses, okay? And the blacks that lived in Rosewood, shotgun houses. Now, how can Rosewood have these big two-story houses when they had shotgun houses in 1913 in Sumner? So that is not true. So when the mob came looking for Aaron, no one was there. They were upset, okay? And I need to tell you, they went back home, and they refilled their cups, okay? Got more nerves, so they came back. When they came back the second time, they went to Aunt Sarah's house, went inside, and there was Aaron in bed. Kicked the door open, cussing, where is he? And they were looking for Sylvester Carrier, Aaron Carrier, and Sam Carter. They found only Aaron. Got him out of bed, dragged him out of bed, put a rope around his neck, tied him up, kicked him down the stairs, tied him behind the Model T or T-model, and dragged him all the way to Sumner, which was 3 miles. I don't know how he lived. They beat him, they kicked him, they cussed him. And they said to him, the guys, the people who were behaving in that manner said, well, he's damn near dead. Let's finish him off. And just then, the sheriff came up, Sheriff Bob Walker, and said, don't. I'll finish the end off. And that was their word they wanted to hear. So instead of the sheriff finishing him off, they said, chuck him in the car. So they put Aaron in the car, and as fast as the little T-model, what's it, Model T? He brought Aaron to Gainesville and said to Sheriff James Ramsey, I don't think that's his right name, but said to Sheriff Ramsey, put him in this jail, and don't you tell anybody that he is here. And guess what? For 6 months, Aaron stayed in jail, in Alachua County jail. For 6 months, no harm done. He survived. But before Sheriff Walker left, he said, get a doctor to him. He was damn near dead. And they brought him back to health. And I have a picture of the doctor who was his doctor. But anyway, after he got Aaron situated, he jumped in his car. He knew he had left some people down in Rosewood not pleased. And he knew they were not finished. So he went as fast as his little car could take him straight to Aunt Sarah's house where they had gotten Aaron from. And the people at Aunt Sarah's house, I told you the women hung out there, and all of them had really gathered there. The women ran to the door when they heard the car coming, and before the sheriff could get out, they yelled, they got Gussie. Gussie was beholder, my aunt, okay? He jumped in his car, and he went to Sumner. And of course it was cold, and you know how men stand around barrels with a fire, okay? So that's where he found them. He jumped out of his car and said to them, where is she? Everybody got quiet. They couldn't talk. Cat got their tongue. And the sheriff says, where is she, goddammit? Calm down, Bob. Bob was fired up. One person pointed in the direction where they had dragged her and raped her. He went there. He found her. She later told my mom she was so cold. She had on a little nightgown. Oh, I didn't say about when they came back. They came back before the sheriff got back from Gainesville and took her, a rope around her neck. They didn't drag her, but they put her in the car and took her there. Because when they came back looking for Sam Carter and Sylvester Carey, they said, oh, well, where's the teacher? Because they knew they had the teacher's husband. So that's why Bob Walker knew she was there, the Sheriff Bob Walker. So he went out, he rescued her, and she told my mom, At one time, she thought there was a bug in her eye. However, it was a frozen tear. So when he came through, he took his jacket off. She didn't have on anything. I mean, they had kind of like ripped her clothes, put his jacket around her, walked her to the car, and when he had to go through them, you know what they call him, in lover. So he took her on, took her to Aunt Sarah, and put her away. That's day one. Long day, isn't it? But it wasn't over. Day one was over. I'm cutting it off. But anyway, there was day two coming up. So James Taylor, I told you they hated each other. James Taylor and Sylvester Carrier. So James Taylor sent Sylvester Carrier a message, we are coming tomorrow to kick your, and he said, bring it on, okay? So it was night, you know, the devil's work at night. A lot of people in town did not know the run of Rosewood because they had come here from South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, because they came here to the KKK rally and they didn't know the run of Rosewood. Sure enough, they came that night. And when they came, as I said, it was dark. They heard them coming, but what they didn't know, Sylvester Carrier had gone out and told all of his friends what was going to happen. So they were ready. They were prepared. They had their shotguns. They had, they said the store merchant had given them ammunition. They were waiting for them. So they came and they were met head on, gunfire. Don't know if it is true, but I do know that it's true because it was in the newspaper that they were screaming, I'm hit, you shot me, ouch, stop, all that kind of stuff. I was told, believed by my mom, that her sister told her, I told you they were met head on, that they were laying in the yard when the sheriff came on day 3 to investigate the slaughter on night 2, day 2. There were only four, I got the records, blacks killed. One was killed in Meredith on the way to Cedar Key, Rosewood. And 5, but if you remember, somebody here said there was a mass grave, not in here. They put that in the movie. I begged them, don't, because there was no mass grave of black folks killed. I know. They did it anyway. My mama told her, she said, if there was a mass grave, they were not black. I understand when they burned down the town, they burned Aunt Sarah's house down, and they burned all of the other houses down. And what I didn't tell you, that when they came in on day 2 to capture or kill, they killed Aunt Sarah, who was walking through the house. That's how she was killed. She was not up in her 2-story house. She had a shotgun house too. She was walking through the house in an effort to quiet the kids because there were a set of twins that Sylvester, mom said, her sister told her he had one on each knee and they were babies to keep them quiet. And Aunt Sarah was going through the house and that's when she was shot. And when she was shot, the women in the house all screamed, and they were supposed to be quiet. Aunt Sarah's been shot. That's Sylvester's mother. And that's when my mom said, all hell broke loose, and they started shooting back. Okay, so when the sheriff came back and saw these dead people in the yard on day 3, he just knew no one was in the house, and he opened the door, and when he did, there were the black women and children in the house, and he said, get out. Go to John Wright house right now. John Wright was the store merchant. He had the big white 2-story house, okay? He is expecting you. However, when they got there, John Wright was not only surprised, he was devastated. He didn't want to be a part of this. He didn't want people coming to his house because what the other people, his friends, are going to say. I don't know what they said, but this is what they did. they stopped patronizing him. He didn't make any more money at his store once he found out they had used his house, okay, to hide out the Rosewood men, women, and children. Okay? That is day 3. So the sheriff worked really hard to get the people moved safely away. It's because he knew so many of them. So what he did, my mom said, he went to every house in Alachua County, Waldo, on up the road. I'll sing about that later. To tell those people, you meet your people, whomever is coming in tomorrow at the train station. And they all obliged. He came back, he went to see the key, he begged the train conductors to help him to drive your train. Please, I got to get these people out of here alive. They all said no. And they said to him, Bob, we can't put our family lives in jeopardy. We can't do it. Okay? And they didn't. And when he thought he had given up, the Bryce brothers, John and William from Bryceville, said, John, we will do it. I'm sorry, Walker, Bob, we will do it. We will help you. However, we got to leave at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning while everybody else is asleep. He said, okay. So he came back to Rosewood and told John Wright and his wife they had to help because there were people in the swamps hiding and people in his basement and people in his store hiding and waiting for the next signal to go. So they told my aunt, they gave her a black skirt to put on and gave her a lantern. And the purpose of the skirt was to hide, to camouflage the lantern. And when she saw the glimmer of the train coming from from Cedar Key to Rosewood, she was to move her skirt back and forth. But her skirt was black, okay? And she led the kids from John Wright's house to the train, okay? Unbeknownst to her, when the train came to a stop, white men jumped off. She almost died. But they were the helpers who had gotten out of their bed to help put the women, the old women, the men, and the children on the train. Okay? So, with all of that accomplished, they left Rosewood and took them dropped off at Meredith, Brunson, Otter Creek, Archer, Gainesville, Waldo, Stark, Lordy, Maxville, Callahan, up to Brightsville. That's where the train stopped. And believe it or not, when the train stopped in Brightsville, there were some people still on the train. Why didn't they get off? Because they had come to Rosewood from the South. I'm talking about black people from other states, and they didn't have anybody living in Florida. So they stayed on the train. And the Bryce brothers' dad, Kay Bryce, owned a sawmill, turpentine, one of the mills or both. And he gave them a job, and I understand from his great-granddaughter, Margaret Cruz, a Brightsville resident, that his dad built them shelter later. So, during my travel, I was able to track down some of the people, my travel and my research, that left Rosewood and was living in Brightsville. One was a teacher in Brightsville, and I was talking to her one day, and she said, "Oh, I'm from Rosewood." And I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Asheville, Fanny Asheville Thomas." She was my sorority sister living in Tampa. She could tell my story from reading my book as well as I could. Okay, she became a teacher there. She didn't go to college at that time but she was the best thing that ever happened in Brycefield as a teacher. Okay, so Rosewood has taken me everywhere, and I know you have so many questions, okay, that you need to ask. If you would like to ask a question, I'm kind of losing my voice. At this time, let me stop and ask a question. Ask a question even if you know it's not. Oh, let me tell you about John Wright. I was speaking at the Civic Center in 1999, and a young lady raised her hand. She said, Mrs. Jenkins? I said, yes. She said, John Wright is my great-grand-uncle. I said, and don't you leave here before we talk. And we have been talking ever since. So she said to me, I'm a descendant too. She said, there are lots of white descendants, but they are not going to talk to you. She was from Elsie, and her last name was Elsie, and today she is an attorney. So one thing we are going to do at our August event, we are going to invite them back to our event because they were most helpful. They never accused me of anything. It's like they embraced me, but they had to do it secretly. So when her grandmother, recognized her 50th anniversary out there in Trenton, I was there. Okay? When her great-grand-aunt died, I went to the funeral. And the undertaker asked me, and the mortician asked me, are you the maid? No, I'm not, but I never told him who I was. I just smiled, no. So I have done a lot. I have, and I'm proud of it. But also, let me stop here and ask, if you would like to ask a question, ask me anything. Thank you. I'm not through, however, because you got to hear my song that my mother wrote. In your travels, have you ever come across any of the descendants of the sheriff? Yes. That's who. Oh, yes. I have his pictures. What I did, how did I find her? Oh, I was lots of research. So one day I was at the courthouse and this young lady walked in there. And she said, hi, my name is Phoebe. And she gave me her last name. I said, well, nice to meet you. She said, I understand you are doing research for Rosewood. I said, yes, I am. Phoebe Hughes. I said, yes, I am. She said, well, I just want you to know that Bob Walker is my brother. The sheriff? I said, for real? She said, yes. And the rest was history. So she said, oh, did you know something Walker that taught school in Arch? I said, yes. She said, and that's my sister. I said, okay, thank you. And she said, you know, Bob Walker's daughter is living in Georgia. I said, for real? She said, yes, and here's her number. I called that number, and we talked a long time, and she could tell me and validate some of those pictures. Okay, yes, we did meet eventually. And she said, and this is my granddaughter's number. She has all of the pictures, so call her. I called the young lady. She lives in Houston, Texas today. We are still in touch with each other, and she sent me 2 pictures of her grandfather. Okay? And we're going to have her down. So Phoebe Hughes' connection, when she came and gave me that information about her family, how is it? I don't quite remember. But anyway, her daughter, Phoebe's daughter, and Bob Walker's granddaughter did not know that each other existed. So I was able to put them together, okay? And what I didn't tell you when I went to Trenton to that anniversary, that was the niece of Polly Wilkerson, who was the first white man killed in Rosewood. So they didn't hold any grudges. It was like they wanted me to know that they were a part of history. They didn't cause what happened, but they just wanted to be a part of the history. And that's why I tell it positively and do not attack them. Did I answer your question? Okay. Another question? Yes.
What happened after 6 months to Aaron and then to his kids?
Aaron, after 6 months, he was in jail for 6 months. So, how did we find out he was in jail? My great-grandmother that walked from Jackson, Mississippi, oldest daughter, was the result of being violated, had a son, 3 sons. And I didn't have to bring that in, but anyway, her oldest son, Nathaniel Brown, on the first Sunday, June 1922, killed his wife. And I love that man. He was our little carrier. What you call the man that carried mail? Anyway, he would carry the news all over Archer. But anyway, they put him in jail. They gave him life, okay, for killing his wife. Aaron was in that same jail. So Aaron loved to talk after he got well. And he was talking to Nathaniel, the one that killed his wife. And he told Aaron that he was from Archer. And Aaron says, Archer? Do you know my wife? He said, who is your wife? He said, Gussie. They didn't know Gussie because they called her in Archer, they called her Hun. So Nathaniel didn't know who Aaron was talking about. But anyway, when my Nathaniel's mom came to the jail to visit Aaron, her son, Nathaniel, Aaron was there. She recognized him immediately. And she said, boy, don't I know you? What's your name? He said, Bubba. She said, don't play with me. What's your name? He said, Aaron. He said, okay, you Hun's husband. She had intimidated him. He said, yes, ma'am. He didn't know who Hun was either. Okay. But anyway, she didn't say anything else. They left. They did the shopping for everybody in Archer and went home. And there was Hun, who had been living with her mother her mother in Archer, which was her mother was Aunt Mariah's sister, living there for 6 months. She thought Aaron was dead, and he thought she was dead. And she said, y'all will never guess who I saw today. Your husband. And I understand that she started grinning and she never stopped. Somehow the word got to the sheriff. He came, he brought Aaron home, and he said to them, get the hell out of Archer. Because he knew the people were looking. So they moved to Jacksonville. They stayed over there 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years and came back here. He got a job working on the railroad. She got a job as a maid for a doctor. She hated it because she was not cut out to be a maid. So she was cooking and doing all that kind of stuff for them. And guess what? This is not Rosewood, but anyway, it is Rosewood. After my mom died, I found a letter that was written to my aunt in 1945. And I said, these are the people Mama told me that Aunt MG, well, I call her MG, Mahelda works for. So I called Jacksonville, the operator, and I asked for Dr. Clarence Rollins. I'm sorry, we don't have that number listed. And I kept calling because I was determined to do everything. I just continued to call, and one day the operator said, yes, we do have a Clarence Rollins. So I called the number, and Clarence Rollins Jr. wife answered. That's whose number they were giving me. And I said, ma'am, my name is Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, and I'm from Archer. And my aunt used to work for your for you all. She said, well, what's her name? I said, I knew they called her Gussie. I said, Gussie? Oh, are you Gussie? I said, no. Gussie is deceased. Gussie has been deceased since 1948. Oh, she could make some good pies. So she put me in touch with his real children. I called, and they lived in Ponte Vedra Beach. I called them, made an appointment, and I went to see them because I wanted to know, I was doing research. I wanted to know what they knew about her, which was very limited. But if you go on my website, you will see both of those girls sitting on the floor reading the posters and the information I took with me. And I thank my husband, John, for just doing and guiding me, and everything I asked him to do, he did it, okay? And we had a wonderful time. Now, how did I get on that story? I don't know. But my Uncle Richard, and when my Uncle Richard, and when Aunt Emma died, okay, James Carrier was one of the men killed, and his wife was already sick and was taking care of about 5 grandchildren. And she moved to Gainesville, and her family put her up. Who wants to put up a family, and they already had a family, and bringing in 5 children? But her cousins took her in, and she died. And when she died, Aaron and my aunt reared those kids. Minnie Lee Langley was one of them. My granddaddy decided to send his youngest son to Jacksonville to live with her because they had better schools there. In fact, they didn't have a high school in Archer. So there were 6 kids, and she working as a maid. She never told this lady who she worked for, but every day she had her to cook more than that family needed to take the food home for those kids. And the reason Aaron put Minnie Lee with Rosewood, they were talking one day, and Aaron, I'm sorry, not Aaron, my Uncle Richard said, are you the young lady that got hit by a car when you were a kid? She said, yes. That was Minnie Lee. Minnie Lee is the person who went to the newspaper first with 60 Minutes, Ed Bradley, and told the story. They lived in the same house growing up. Do we have another question? I know I haven't told you all everything you wanted to know. Yes? Yes. What can we learn? I hope we learn a lesson so that we will not repeat history. We didn't create history. History is who we are, good, bad, or different. That's why I tell the story. I have a passion for it. I have lived it. I've had a real hard life living history. I remember the Jim Crow days. Wasn't easy. Remember I said I remember my mom? Okay. She protected us. I knew that wasn't natural. Okay. She protected us all of her life because she didn't want us to go through this. And we would walk behind Mom and Dad and we'd go shopping. Dad would always walk in front. Mom would be behind us and the children in the middle, and they said, don't look up. Keep your head down. They didn't want us to see the stares, the way the people looked at us, okay, the meanness. So I may not have answered your question, but let's work together. Let's not repeat it. It's awful. Nobody knows the pain I have shared. I went to college. I'm proud that these universities are accepting people. When I went to college, I could not attend the University of Florida. I was in St. Augustine at my college in 1960. We did a sit-in, the scariest I have ever been in all of my life, at the counter, Woolworth, okay? And the Klansmen came. I had all of these pictures. The dogs, the horses, and my mom knew what was going on and would call. We had one payphone in the dormitory, and every time the phone rang, my peers would say, that ain't nobody but your mama. Tell her to get off that phone. And my mom said, let me speak to my baby. And you better not go down there and sit at that counter. Yes, ma'am. And my peers said, oh, you are going, Robinson. And I did. The one thing, and they jailed the day before I was supposed to go. They beat those girls bloody and jailed them. The next day I was supposed to go. The reason I didn't go, God was at work because the governor called it off. But we were still there to sit. But the governor called it off, and we did not have to go. And I tell people the one thing that I regret, I did not get my a jail record, so that I wanted something to brag about and say, oh yeah, I went to jail and this kind of stuff. But I don't have any proof. But I did go down there, and it wasn't easy. So I hate, and still today. And I think this is what keeps me going, ma'am. I don't want this, what happened to me, I don't want it to happen to anybody else. My dad, all of his entire life, was scared to death of white men. Scared. He bought a farm in 1940, 285 acres. He bought that farm so that he could put our basketball court. He could put our park, baseball diamond. He kept us home and away from what we didn't know really the history of. He kept us away from people. I appreciate him so very much. But we were isolated. We were in our own world. And he told us, and you better not sell my land. Today we still have his land. But right now, do you want to buy some property I'm trying to sell? Yes, indeed. We got it up for sale right now so that I can spend some of the money and help build the museum. And we have 29 acres where my aunt, the school teacher, grew up on. That's where we plan to build the Museum Multicultural Center, on that property. Okay? So, we can't repeat it. We can't repeat it. My life speaks volumes to hatred. My aunt used to hide out at our house when she was on the run, and we lived down a lane that no way out. And one day, the four of us children were outside playing, and we heard this Jeep coming. Mom came to the door. She had already warned us. When she speak, we listen. Get in this house. And we jumped up and ran in the house. And, of course, we got right behind her, peeking out to see what is going on. And these two men stopped right in front of the door. And my mom was there. And they said to her, "Where's your husband?" And my mom did this. "He's out back." My father was 7 miles away. But they left because they didn't know if she had a gun or not. Smart lady, 8th grade education. Okay, yes?
Well, it doesn't seem like there was any chance to really get justice through the criminal justice system, but were you able to research or see if anyone tried to pursue like justice through suing, or was there anything?
They were given reparations, but some of the people that got the money, I think 11 survivors got $150,000. However, they were not survivors. They had lived in Rosewood at one point. And that's another thing that happened that should not have happened. The people who were in charge abused the money. My mom and 7 of her siblings and in-laws together got about $20,000. Mom's check was like $3,333.33. And I didn't get anything. I worked so hard in Tallahassee, everything. Didn't get anything. I made sure that the magazines, 2 Florida state magazines, put her information in there about receiving the 20-year, 20,000 Great Floridian, and then in the other magazine, the Black Heritage Trail, the historical marker is in there. And I just thank these magazines here in Gainesville, Scott Costello, Tricia, Utter Ward, did I say it right? Alachua and High Springs Magazine for helping to get the message out. But another thing that, research is so good. I was researching. My great-great-grandfather, Henry McIntyre, came. I found him. I said, Mom, where are our people from? She said, Cedar Key. I found him at the Smathers Center. Don't remember the year. He was born in 1845, and at that time he was 1. I never found his parents. I found him age 1, and as I kept researching, one day I was looking, and there he was on property, on a property deed. They had given him 159 acres. Did you all know about the homestead back then? Okay, I'm glad somebody else knows it. If you came here and you were enslaved, not just the white, you were allowed, not 160, 159. And I found that. And just like they gave it to him, they took it from him. They had him to come in, seated him around people with shotguns and said, Henry, Yaza, don't you want to sell your property? Yaza. Of course he's going to say yes, because they had guns. He knew if he hadn't signed it, they were going to kill him or his family. However, he didn't sign it. It is a typed X. So they owe us for our property that they took. Levy County. Now, don't go back and tell Levy County I said this, and I know you are. But that's why they did not want me down there researching, because they knew I was going to find something. Okay? And just like they did that to my ancestors, they did it to yours too. You just haven't done your research. So you got property too. Okay? Believe me, I can sure use that money now. Mm-hmm. So if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to sing this song that my mother wrote, and she told me before I speak, you need to learn to sing a song. I didn't tell you all about anything. Would you all like to see a quickie of some of my artifacts? This watch, my grandfather bought this in 1868. He bought this when he got married. This was his wedding gift himself. Let me tell you about grandfather real quick. He passed his life. Okay? He asked my great-grandparents if he could marry their daughter, Lizzie. And she was dark-skinned. The cop passed his wife. And they said to him, no, you're too white. So he worked on the train. He was a clergy. He took her to the train to put her on, because he could ride through. They said, oh, she can't ride on this train. And you know what they called her? He said, oh, she's my maid. Oh, okay. They went to Issachatta, Florida, and the first time I said Issachatta was in this building years ago, and got married. Her parents almost died because they didn't know where she had gone. But this is his watch. And also, there are other people that still trying to, they talk to me, and they want to know if they are a part of Rosewood. Okay? I found their picture, my granddad and grandma, Juliann, that walked in Mississippi. I found it on something that looked like this. And inside of it was this. And there was one picture. This has 15 pictures, and I can't find anybody now to develop them. So you know somebody who will develop them. I'm hoping my picture on you when I was a kid. Okay, so I have saved, my mother saved everything. Oh my God. This is my grandfather's glasses. Okay. This is my school teachers, my aunt's glasses, and I can still see out of it. in 1920 that says, Charlie Brown, Archie Floyd is made out of orange oak. It has a sword right here. And one day I was trying to open, I said, why can't I open it? She said, probably because dry blood. I said, Mama, Papa ever killed anyone? She said, heroes do what heroes have to do. Okay? They would fight. They resisted. They killed a man in Archer. Somebody did. And they were so scared and hanging two men in Archer. They brought me to Gainesville in 1912. This is my aunt's birth. I didn't need she was a sailor. Every one of my grandmother's children have sample hair in here. This was my auntie's skirt. So she was thin, 5'7", and I can wear it today. I'm 5'7", but I can wear it. This was the Bible, Papa learned how to read, self-taught and self-write, and this is the Bible I need to go to. Okay? They were very affiliated with the Knights of today on the side. Okay? This is my uncle. This is the school teacher's brother. Okay? This is my papa. And I have this is his walking cane. This same walking cane. I also have a picture that I found in his file with the 1885 congressional men. And there were 5 black men on there, and one of them had a walking cane. There was something about those walking canes. And I have lots of watches of it. Anyway, my great-grandmother, I told you, came, walked here from Jackson, Mississippi. This is the deed that James Parchman, okay, her daddy, and she was violated by one of the men on here. His name is Albert Bowman. That's the Bowman Medical, at the Bowman Meditation Center in Greensboro, South Carolina. It might have some connection there. Well, I'm looking for it today. Somebody that might be her father. I can't see anything else. I told you they were heavily Masonic. 37 degree Mason, and this is her old book where I found the information, where I called this lady Sumner to give me some information. Now I'm going to sing my song, if we don't have any more questions, and it's called Rosewood, Florida, and I'm so tired. I hope I remember it. When I said tired, I'm losing my voice. If you want to, you may sing it along with me. It goes like this. Rosewood, Florida, borders Highway 24. A destroyed town, no blacks live there anymore. Where emptiness resides in the silent, sacred breeze. Life there for blacks, no more, only nature's moss-hung trees. Rosewood, Florida, once was a growing community, linked with chains of love and family unity. Families were linked with wholesome friendship, and each link represented a special kinship. In this productive southern town of Rosewood, here the families bonded and they understood each other's lives in their unique neighborhood. Lordy, 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 Rosewood used to be real good until a little old sleazy woman with a cheating heart triggered the Rosewood Massacre, and the colored had to depart. They ran for their lives in the middle of the night. They'd heard that a mob was coming to start a hideous fight.
Run, 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 run on for your life, oh Lord. Hide anywhere, just try to survive. Children followed their leaders with fear in their souls and almost froze to death because it was so cold. They were told not to move by the ones in charge, but trying to keep silent was awfully hard. Messages were sent to them by Sheriff Bob Walker. Listen out for John Wright, the designated talker. Thank you all very much. Thanks for coming. And I want you all to know that we want you to be a part of our museum. So please stop. Yes, 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 yes. and if you all want to join the board, we still have more room. Thank you all. Thank you all. Very, very, very much. I do know the song, but I forgot it.